On the outside, we were that couple, the kind that made people wince when they talked about us behind closed doors. Penthouse apartment in Tribeca, matching Pelotons, dual six-figure incomes in digital marketing. Our life was curated, filtered, and branded like a social campaign with a product drop around the corner. The truth? Our perfect life was nothing but scaffolding around a slow collapse. And I didn't even realize how far we'd fallen until the day of the gender reveal. That was the first time I looked around the rooftop and asked myself, why do I feel like a guest at my own life? Let me rewind a little. My name's Ryan. I work for a creative agency in Manhattan that specializes in high-end hospitality brands, swanky hotels, boutique spas, and overpriced wellness retreats. I write copy that makes people think they need things they absolutely don't. It's not glamorous, but it pays like it is. My wife, Ava, is a marketing director at a luxury fashion label you've definitely heard of. She's sharp, charismatic, the kind of woman who makes you feel like you're the only person in the room when she talks to you, even when she's mentally 12 meetings ahead. We met at an industry event in Soho 5 years ago. She was already dressed like the woman I'd spend my life trying to impress. And for a while, it worked. We rose together. Apartment upgrades, Instagrammable vacations, power couple energy. Then came the pregnancy. She told me with a smile so wide, I thought it might crack her face open. It's happening, she whispered. We're going to be parents. At the time, I didn't notice the way her hands shook, or how her voice sounded more rehearsed than relieved. I didn't even ask questions. I just hugged her. I thought that was what I was supposed to do. Fast forward 3 months. Ava was knee-deep in planning what she called the gender reveal of the season. She said it like she was accepting an award. Everyone's doing those dry backyard things, she said, flipping through her mood board. Ours needs to pop. A drone show, a champagne wall, maybe a string quartet. I blinked. Isn't this supposed to be a family thing? It is, she said, sipping her matcha. But it's also a brand thing. The image. The moment. This baby's our next chapter. People need to see that. What she meant, though she'd never admit it, was her next chapter. Because somehow, in all the planning and Pinterest boards and floral mock-ups, I had been quietly pushed to the margins. She didn't let me invite my parents. Said it would throw off the seating dynamics. Instead, it was all her side. Her coworkers. Her stylist. The random friend of a friend with 400K followers who'd agreed to casually post the event. And me? I was footing the bill. I let it slide. I told myself it was just hormones, or stress, or the illusion of control that expectant mothers clung to when everything else felt uncertain. But still it nagged at me. The distance. The polite disinterest. The way she clutched her phone just a little tighter when I entered the room. Something wasn't right. It wasn't until 2 weeks later, when I volunteered to handle the thank you cards, that I saw the first crack. Ava had ordered them custom, of course. Ivory stock with embossed gold lettering that read, "From our growing family, with love." There was a stack of envelopes. Some had already been addressed in her tight, elegant handwriting. Others were blank. I started sorting them. Then I found one that stopped me cold. It was addressed to someone named Tayden. The name meant nothing to me. But the handwriting? That meant everything. Because it was the exact same flourish she used to write my name on anniversary cards back when she still meant it. That specific way she looped the Y, the long dash before her name at the bottom. It was intimate. Personal. Too personal. I stared at the card for a long time, then flipped it over. Inside, she'd already written a message. You've been a light through this whole journey. I couldn't have done it without you. No we. No us. No from Ryan and Ava. Just her. And Tayden. I didn't confront her right away. Instead, I started watching. I paid attention to the way she smiled at her phone, how she suddenly took her calls in the walk-in closet, how she always locked the screen twice before setting it down. She had always been careful, but now she was too careful. And suddenly, it all felt staged. The baby, the party, even me. That night, while she slept next to me with a silk mask on her face and her phone charging across the room, I sat in my office with that thank you card in front of me. I opened my laptop, and I began to plan. Not a confrontation, not a divorce, a presentation, something public, something unforgettable. Because if Ava wanted to brand this baby like a campaign, then I was going to treat it like a launch. Only this time, the product wasn't a child. It was the truth. I didn't sleep much after finding the thank you card. The handwriting. The message. That name. Tayden. It looped through my brain like bad copy on a feedback loop. You've been a light. I couldn't have done it without you. She wasn't talking about pregnancy support. Not from a friend, a cousin, or some business associate. No, I knew that tone. I'd heard it before. Hell, I'd received it myself. Back when I was the one who made her light up a room. Now, I was the guy footing the bill for a party he wasn't even invited to design. So I started digging. Not recklessly. I wasn't going to be that guy, the one who breaks into his wife's phone or chases ghosts based on a gut feeling. I had one goal in mind: confirmation. Quiet, factual, irrefutable confirmation. Because once I had that, I knew exactly what I'd do. First step? Start where she slipped, the card. Tayden. It wasn't a common name. I typed it into her email account one night while she was soaking in the tub. She'd left her iPad unlocked. Bless her overconfidence. No full emails showed up, but there was a calendar entry. Tayden Coffee, 11 a.m./Soho House. That was dated just 3 weeks prior. A client strategy lunch, she told me that day. Which, to be fair, was always her euphemism for anything she didn't want to explain. I clicked into the entry. There was no last name, no subject line. But under location, I saw a note. Roof garden. Ask for booth under A. Hey, as in Ava. So it wasn't a business thing. Not unless business now involved meetups in private rooftop booths and a thank you note with love letter calligraphy. I kept going. I remembered her old anniversary letters, the ones she used to write by hand on linen cardstock and hide under my pillow. I hadn't looked at those in years. They were boxed up somewhere in our guest room closet, stacked under a crate of unused throw pillows and seasonal decor we hadn't rotated in 3 years. I dug them out late that night. One by one, I opened them and compared the writing. Same elegant loops. Same elongated tail on the Y. Same double dash before her signature, like she was trying to sign off on a secret. It was her handwriting, and she wasn't writing to me. Tayden had to be real. So I turned to what every rational man turns to when he suspects his wife is cheating: LinkedIn. I filtered her connections by first name. There were 3 Taydens. One was a logistics manager in Nevada, unlikely. One was an undergrad intern she mentored 4 years ago, too young, and judging by his recent posts, still obsessed with sneakers and meme stocks. The third? Tayden Rhodes, senior art director, brand and experiential, New York. Tall, sharp-jawed, curated facial hair, and the kind of expression that said he listened to vinyl records in headphones made of reclaimed mahogany. One scroll through his profile told me everything I needed. Ava had liked 12 of his posts in the last year, half of them between midnight and 2 a.m. One of the comments read, "You really capture emotion through texture. Incredible work, as always." She might as well have written, "I'm dreaming about you right now." The final nail came from Instagram. Not hers. His. His account was private, but he had a public portfolio link in his bio. I clicked it. The header read, "A year in intention, a visual journal." A collection of muted photos. Abstract. Carefully filtered. But buried halfway through was a photo that made my skin tighten. A sunbeam falling through sheer curtains. A delicate hand on a coffee mug. And the unmistakable curve of a woman's thigh, marked by a small constellation of freckles I'd memorized over years of sharing a bed with her. She was in his photo, not showing her face. But I didn't need it. I knew that leg like I knew my own name. I didn't rage. I didn't yell. I documented. Screenshots. Downloads. Metadata. I gathered receipts like I was building a case for trial. And in a way I was. But not for court. For the baby shower. Because if Ava wanted to build a spectacle, if she wanted lights and flowers and gender-themed macarons, then I'd make sure she got a reveal she'd never forget. I started assembling the album. Not a scrapbook. A timeline. Month by month, I gathered everything I could. Instagram clues. Text exchanges I spotted when her notifications lit up across our shared devices. Hotel booking receipts I pulled from our joint credit card. And at the center of it all, Tayden's design files. I found one on her laptop during a routine backup. A logo concept folder named TA plus AR initials. It was password protected, but the dumbest people make the biggest mistakes. She used our wedding anniversary as the password. Inside were mock-ups of a potential lifestyle brand, dreamy serif fonts, boho textures, color palettes named things like Warm Silence and Mist Memory. It was a brand made for her. With him, I added it to the timeline. each page more damning than the last. The final page? That one took finesse. I had a friend in legal services run a quiet request through the city's family court database. Nothing sealed yet, but there was a file. Ava's name, Tayden's name, a document titled, Acknowledgement of Paternity, Rhodes, Tayden, signed, notarized. I pulled a copy. It had his signature, his address, and a due date that matched exactly with the day she first told me we were expecting. That was the page I saved for the end. As the baby shower approached, Ava was glowing, in that artificial way someone does when they think they've successfully buried the truth. Oh, and we're doing a little slideshow, she said one night, brushing her hair in front of our bedroom mirror, just to walk through the journey so far. You know, the bump pics, nursery progress, first kicks. I nodded. That's perfect. She didn't notice the hard edge in my smile. I'd already booked the print house. The album cover? Our timeline, a celebration of new life and honest beginnings. It was wrapped in white linen with gold embossing, the same style as her thank you cards. In New York, appearances are everything. You can walk through a storm of unpaid credit cards, broken relationships, and dead-end dreams. And as long as your blazer is tailored and you've got a confident smile, people will step aside like you on the sidewalk. Ava knew that better than anyone. That's why the guest list mattered to her more than the baby. I don't say that lightly. She put more effort into curating that list than she ever did building our nursery. It wasn't a shower, it was a rollout, a product launch wrapped in baby blue. Every detail screamed performance. It's all about optics, she said one night while finalizing the table seating. The right people, the right photos, the right backdrop. This event positions us, this baby, in a way that reinforces our brand. Our brand. I didn't laugh, didn't blink, just nodded like I agreed. Because by then, I had my own optics to manage. We were a week out from the baby shower, and Ava was in full event mode. Guest RSVPs color-coded, food trucks lined up, photographer booked, and a full-time assistant tasked with coordinating everything down to the shade of white in the balloon arch. Meanwhile, I was assembling something far more delicate. My version of the guest list. See, she'd made it clear that my family didn't really fit the vibe. Her words. They just don't photograph well, she added, as if that somehow softened the blow. They're people, not product features, I'd replied. Ryan, come on. Don't be dramatic. But it wasn't about drama. It was about truth. A truth she'd been shaping and trimming to fit her narrative for months, maybe years. And now, I was about to set it all on fire. My first move? Invite my sister, Emily. She was blunt, hilarious, and the exact kind of person Ava had always considered a bit much. Em had always seen through Ava, called her a walking press release in heels. But more than that, she was loyal. The kind of sibling who would fly across the country with zero context if I told her I needed backup. When I called her and said, "You should come to the baby shower," she hesitated. "You want me there?" she asked. "Does Ava know?" "She doesn't," I said. "And she won't. Not until you're sitting front row with a mimosa and a GoPro." She laughed. "So this is a thing?" "Oh yeah," I said. "It's the thing." "I'm in," she said, without another word. Next, I reached out to Liam, Ava's ex-coworker turned corporate gossip merchant. He'd been quietly iced out by Ava during one of her networking climbs a year ago and had never forgotten the slight. "I heard you're throwing a little party," he said when I called. "A very revealing party," I said. Liam chuckled. "You need me to leak something?" "No," I said. "I need you to witness something. Firsthand. Unfiltered." He paused. "Are you finally torching the facade?" "Consider it performance art," I said. "I'll bring my best pocket square." With my players in position, I focused on logistics. I booked a second photographer, someone Ava didn't know, and gave him a simple brief: capture everything. The looks, the reactions, the moment when her carefully built narrative crumbled in front of 100 champagne-sipping onlookers. And I made one final addition to the guest list. Tayden. I didn't invite him directly. Instead, I created an anonymous email account and sent him an elegant digital invitation, complete with RSVP link, time, location, and the caption: "You should see what she's built. Bring your best smile. The cameras will be watching." I had no idea if he'd show. But if he did, well, that would be the cherry on top. The baby shower was set for Saturday. The weather was perfect. The venue, a private rooftop garden overlooking the skyline, all done in tasteful whites and soft blues. Everything was immaculately curated. From the vintage glassware to the name that baby food tasting table, it looked like a Pinterest board brought to life. Guests arrived in waves. Fashion editors, Ava's yoga friends, her boss's PR intern, even a local lifestyle blogger who once called Ava a beacon of modern motherhood. The only thing missing? The truth. Ava floated through the crowd like a pageant queen, hand on her belly, smile locked in place, posing for photos with her friends like she hadn't just rewritten our child's origin story in silence. "Can you believe we're almost there?" she kept saying. "The journey's been incredible." I watched her work the room, champagne glass in hand, gesturing toward a massive white and gold box where the gender reveal would take place. "It's twins," someone whispered. "Definitely a girl. She looks amazing. She always does." I stood by the drink table, invisible, just the father of the child, the wallet behind the balloons, the placeholder in the pictures she'd eventually crop. But not for long. Emily arrived 10 minutes late, on purpose. She wore fire engine red, the only splash of color in a room full of neutrals. Ava's eyes twitched when she saw her. "Oh," she said, trying to smile. "You made it." Emily winked. "Wouldn't miss it. You look complicated." Ava blinked. "Excuse me." "Kidding," Emily said, stepping past her. "Where's the champagne wall?" Liam arrived next, camera phone already out. "Darling," he said, kissing Ava's cheek. "I just know this is going to be unforgettable." And then, quietly, he turned to me and whispered, "You ready?" I nodded once. It was time. I walked up to the microphone just before the reveal moment. Ava beaming beside the box, surrounded by guests, press, and polite applause. "Hi everyone," I said. "Before we cut the confetti, I have a gift for Ava." She turned toward me, surprised. "This wasn't on the schedule," she whispered. "It's a surprise," I said, handing her the gift-wrapped linen book. On the front, gold letters. "Our timeline." She smiled, confused. Opened it. The first page. Month 1, a positive test and a quiet lie. She flipped. Page after page. Photos of her and Tayden. Screenshots. Calendar entries. Hotel receipts. The entire affair. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Ava's smile disappeared. Her hand trembled as she turned the pages faster. And then, the last page. Acknowledgement of paternity, signed by Tayden Rhodes. She stared at it. No one spoke. The only sound was the wind shifting through the floral arch. Then I stepped forward. Took the mic again. "Ava has worked very hard on this event. And while I won't be part of the next chapter, I did want to be here today, to make sure the story was told accurately." I turned to her. "You were right about one thing." She looked at me, tears forming. "This baby's not ours." I held out a small box. Inside, the keys to our apartment. I smiled. "It's yours now, along with the life you built around it." Then I turned, walked past stunned guests, past the table of untouched macarons, out the door, and into the truth. You don't think about the after when you're standing at the edge of something big. I'd spent weeks planning that baby shower reveal, sleepless nights stitching receipts into a timeline, testing the weight of each word, measuring every page like a slow fuse. I knew the explosion would come, but I hadn't thought about the sound it would make once it echoed beyond those rooftop walls. I hadn't thought about what happened when the truth left the room and hit the internet. It started an hour after I walked out. I was sitting alone on a bench outside the venue, tie loose, blazer folded beside me, watching the skyline like it owed me something. My phone buzzed, a text from Emily. "You're trending." I blinked. Then another. Someone filmed the whole thing. The album, the speech, everything. At first, I thought she meant someone in our circle. Maybe Liam. Maybe a cousin of Ava's with a TikTok account. But it wasn't just someone. It was everyone. There had been over 100 people at that shower, and in this city, attention is currency. A few seconds of spectacle, a scandal with the right aesthetic, and suddenly, you're content. By the time I checked Twitter, #OurTimeline was the third trending topic in New York. There was a 45-second clip leading the charge. Someone had captured Ava opening the album, her perfectly manicured fingers turning glossy page after page, her smile curdling, her eyes scanning. Then me, stepping up to the mic with quiet control. "This baby's not ours." That line played over and over again. Comment sections lit up like bonfires. He dropped that like he was launching a new iPhone. The pettiness, the precision. I'm obsessed. Justice at 30,000 feet. This is what happens when you try to brand a lie. Some posts were brutal. Others were poetic. But all of them were focused on the same thing. How a man walked into a curated fantasy and replaced the fairy tale ending with truth. I didn't respond. I didn't post. I didn't even open Instagram. But by the next morning, Ava had. She posted a single black and white photo, her hand resting on her belly, diamond ring conspicuously missing. The caption was short. Not every chapter ends with applause, but some endings are necessary. It was artful, measured, designed to reclaim some of the narrative. But it didn't work, because the replies were relentless. Necessary? You were building a whole lie. You used that man as a marketing tool. Maybe the ending would have been different if the beginning wasn't stolen. Within 24 hours, she locked her account. Meanwhile, my inbox was chaos. Strangers messaged me everything from, "Thank you for standing up for yourself," to, "Can you help me make a PowerPoint for my cheating ex?" A podcast called Modern Fallout invited me to speak on branding betrayals and viral revenge. An indie publisher asked if I'd consider turning the event into a short-form memoir, The Shower and the Storm. I turned them all down, because this wasn't about fame. It was about peace, and I hadn't had any of that in months. I moved out the next week. The apartment was technically in both our names, but I'd already signed it over in the envelope with the keys. No lawyers, no back and forth, just an elegant farewell. Ava tried to contact me once, an email titled "Foreclosure." I read the first line. I didn't mean for it to go this far. Then I closed it, because that sentence always comes after the fire's already burned everything to ash. Meaning doesn't fix damage. It just delays accountability. With nowhere pressing to be, I checked into a boutique hotel in Williamsburg. Industrial walls, quiet rooftop, and a mini fridge stocked with overpriced water I didn't touch. It was peaceful. Not happy, not yet, but quiet. I spent a week doing nothing. Walking the streets, listening to silence, letting the tension drain out of my body one knot at a time. I didn't know what my next move was. I just knew it wouldn't involve saving anyone's image but my own. A few days in, I got a message from Liam. "You okay?" I replied, "Getting there." Then he sent another. "You should know, someone reached out to me. Said he was Tayden's cousin. Wanted to know if the paternity doc was real." I didn't answer, but people are sniffing. I wasn't surprised. After all, Tayden hadn't shown up to the shower. No dramatic entrance. No confessions. Just a man-shaped absence. Maybe he didn't expect the reveal. Maybe he ran. Either way, I didn't care. The point wasn't to expose him. It was to remind Ava, and everyone watching, that the truth has a way of showing up when you least expect it. Especially when you've spent months staging a lie like a photo shoot. The following weekend, I went back to the city. Not for her. For me. I stopped by our old apartment once. Just stood outside. The building was the same. Polished glass, quiet doorman, curated lobby scent. But it didn't feel like mine anymore. Good. That meant I was free. 2 months later, I heard from Emily again. She sent me a video. It was an influencer compilation, top 10 viral moments of the year. We were number 4. Clips of the baby shower, commentary voiceovers, freeze frames on Ava's face, and my final line. "This baby's not ours." Underneath, the narrator said, "Sometimes, the cleanest break comes gift-wrapped, with truth as the ribbon." I didn't laugh, but I didn't wince either. Because somehow, that ridiculous shower had turned into a starting point. Not a breakdown. A reset. And in that new quiet, I started writing again. Not branding copy. Not marketing fluff. Just truth. Unfiltered. Undesigned. Because for the first time in a long time, I had no image to protect. Only a life to rebuild. And this time, it would be mine. No ribbons. No filters. No reveal needed. There's a sound that lives in you after betrayal. It's not the scream or the slam of a door. It's not the shattering of a glass or the ring of a phone left unanswered. No, it's quieter than that. Softer. It's the sound of silence after you've told the truth and everyone's finally heard it. It's the echo. For me, that echo followed everywhere. Down subway platforms, in slow elevator rides, through sleepless hotel nights when the air conditioner hummed like a heartbeat I didn't recognize anymore. You think after a revenge that clean, you'll feel better, lighter. But what I felt wasn't freedom. It was space. And space is only peaceful once you decide what you're going to fill it with. The thing about truth is, once it breaks out, it keeps moving. Even months after the baby shower, pieces of the fallout kept drifting back toward me. First was the coworker rumor mill. A guy from Ava's firm messaged me anonymously. She's on leave. They're calling it a stress sabbatical, but it's damage control. Then came the wellness podcast she'd pitched herself to back in January. The host posted a vague message. Beware the people who market motherhood like merchandise. I never spoke publicly. Never gave an interview. Didn't monetize a thing. But the story lived on without me. People called it a breakup manifesto. Others said it was performance art. A few even accused me of faking the whole thing. Said it was too perfect, too dramatic, too well-timed. That part made me laugh. Because I hadn't performed anything. I just stopped lying. And apparently, that's more theatrical than most people can handle. I spent those weeks post-shower in a strange kind of limbo. I didn't go back to work right away. My boss gave me a soft runway. Said something about recharging the creative soul. I think he was half terrified I'd show up and expose someone else's secrets during a pitch deck. So I stayed off-grid. Deleted all social media. Let my inbox rot. Took long walks with no destination. I started eating breakfast again. Started sleeping without checking her side of the bed. Stopped imagining how I'd rewrite conversations that had already ended. The city felt different now. Sharper, but also clearer. Like I was finally walking through it without a filter. One night, I wandered into an open mic event at a bookstore in the East Village. No agenda, just looking for sound that wasn't mine. A woman stepped up to the mic and read a poem about watching someone change, slowly, subtly, until you didn't recognize the way they held their coffee cup or folded their laundry or said your name. She ended with a line I'll never forget. He didn't leave. He just stopped arriving. I thought of Ava. And for the first time, I didn't feel rage. I felt recognition. Because that's exactly what she'd done. She hadn't left me. She just stopped showing up in the life we'd built. And the echo I'd been carrying? It was finally fading. It wasn't until month 3 that I saw her again. By accident. A downtown cafe. Early afternoon. I was meeting an old colleague for coffee. Someone who hadn't asked questions, hadn't picked sides. Just kept it simple. I liked that. As I waited for my drink, I saw Ava at a corner table. She was alone. Dressed down. No makeup. Hair in a loose braid. Her laptop open. Fingers motionless over the keyboard. She looked normal. She looked like a person. And I realized something else. She looked small. Not physically. Spiritually. Not because I had broken her. But because the illusion she'd tried to build had finally collapsed. And now, all she had left was the space between the truth and the lie. She didn't see me. I didn't walk over. Because what would I say? Thanks for the campaign. Good luck raising his kid. You nearly convinced me I wasn't enough? No. I just left. That was the new power I had. I didn't need closure. I'd written the ending already. Back at the hotel that night, I opened a blank document. Not for work. Not for branding. Just for me. I typed 3 words. Who am I? Not in a dramatic, existential crisis kind of way. But practically. Literally. Because I realized I'd spent the last 5 years as someone else's husband, someone else's brand partner, someone else's foundation. I'd been the baseboard to a high-rise life. Pretty on the outside, hollow behind the drywall. And now, without the show, who was I? So I started writing it out. Everything. The first spark between us. The red flags I ignored. The way she used words like alignment and aesthetic to describe love. The dinners where her phone lit up like a signal flare every time she went to the bathroom. I didn't write to publish. I wrote to understand. Every paragraph peeled something back. Every memory rethreaded something that had come undone. And slowly, I found myself again, not in the drama, not in the revenge, but in the honesty. That was the real gift I'd given myself. The baby shower? That was the demolition. But this was the blueprint. People kept asking me if I'd ever want to be a father again. And the truth is, I never stopped wanting that. What I stopped wanting was to pretend. Pretend I was happy. Pretend we were aligned. Pretend the name on the invitation matched the truth of the story. If I ever raise a child, it won't be in a world of cover-ups and color-coordinated lies. It'll be real. Even if it's messy. Especially if it's messy. A week later, I got a card in the mail. Handwritten. No return address. But I knew the handwriting. Ava. It said, you were never the villain. You were the mirror. And I wasn't ready to look. That was it. No apology. No request. Just that. It was enough. Because it meant she knew. And that's all I ever wanted, for her to see it. to see me. I tossed the card in the drawer and opened my laptop again. Typed a new line. The truth is quieter than the lie, but it lasts longer. I smiled. That would be the first sentence of something new. Not a revenge story. Not a viral hit. Just a man, rebuilding. Brick by honest brick. The funny thing about endings? They're never as loud as you expect them to be. After all the rooftop drama, the viral clips, the inbox fireworks, and months of fallout, I thought the final chapter of this mess would come with some kind of last crescendo. One final explosion of words, accusations, maybe even a courtroom. But when the end finally came, it wasn't fire. It was silence. And it was exactly what I needed. I moved into a new apartment in Brooklyn. Not a penthouse. Not a statement. Just a clean, sunlit third-floor walk-up with plants I remembered to water and floors that creaked in a way that made the place feel alive. I bought furniture slowly, room by room, filling the space with pieces that weren't chosen to impress anyone. Just me. A pine desk. A reading chair. An old record player I found at a sidewalk sale. There were no more brand meetings. No Pinterest boards. No curated aesthetics. Just the quiet pleasure of building a life that didn't need to be photographed to matter. For the first time in years, I didn't wake up to a calendar invite. I didn't scroll through a flood of notifications or track analytics on a content rollout. My mornings were simple. Coffee. Light. Breathing. You don't realize how loud your life was until you finally hear it quiet. Every now and then, someone still reached out. A stranger in a bookstore. A DM request that slipped through the filter. Even a few old college friends who hadn't spoken to me in years popped back into my orbit. They all wanted to say the same thing. Man, that shower thing? Legendary. And it always hit the same nerve. Because for them, it was a story. A thrill. A perfectly timed revenge fantasy that gave them something to share in group chats or use as cautionary tale ammo. But for me, it was a death. A funeral for the man I used to be. The one who smiled politely while his wife carved a future around someone else's heartbeat. I appreciated their messages. Really, I did. But I never responded. Because that version of me, he didn't live here anymore. A few months after I moved in, I got a call from my mother. She hadn't asked questions during the drama. She's never been that kind of person. But I could tell her voice had been holding something back. I saw a photo of her, she said gently. Someone posted a tag. She had the baby. I was sitting on the balcony, a book in my hand, sun catching the edge of the skyline. I didn't flinch, didn't ask questions. Boy or girl? I said. Girl. I nodded. Healthy. She looked it. Good, I said. And I meant it. Because I never wanted to punish the child for the sins of the adults. I sat with that for a while. Let it settle. And then, without any planning, I wrote something down. To the girl who was born from a lie. May your life be made of truth. That's all I wrote. I didn't send it. Didn't post it. Just folded it in half and tucked it in the back of a drawer. Because forgiveness doesn't always need a witness. Sometimes, it just needs space. Work came calling again. My agency wanted me back. Said clients were asking for me by name after the shower went viral. Apparently, truth-telling had become marketable. I laughed. Hard. Then politely declined. Instead, I took on a few freelance projects. Small, honest brands. A women-owned tea company. A tattoo parlor that doubled as an art co-op. A writer launching her first poetry book. Nothing flashy, but everything meaningful. Because when you've seen what fake looks like in high def, you start craving the raw edges. Eventually, I crossed paths with someone new. I didn't plan it. Didn't seek it. It just happened. She was nothing like Ava. Didn't care for filters. Wore beat-up sneakers and quoted obscure books and laughed like she wasn't afraid to be loud. We talked for hours the first night. And when she asked about my past, I didn't dodge it. I told her the whole thing. Not because I needed her sympathy, but because I wanted to start with the truth. She listened, then smiled. That sounds brutal, she said. But also, kind of badass. And just like that, the echo got a little quieter. Months passed. Seasons turned. The headlines faded. The hashtags stopped trending. People found new scandals to chase. And the story that once felt like a world-shifting event became just another file in memory's archive. Sometimes I'd still see photos of Ava in the press. She'd cleaned up her brand, pivoted to solo motherhood empowerment, leaned into the new narrative. Maybe it was real. Maybe it was more theater. Either way, I didn't care. Because her story was no longer mine to carry. One rainy afternoon, I found myself back on the old rooftop. Not for nostalgia, just a client meeting in the building. But after the pitch wrapped, I slipped out and rode the elevator up one last time. The garden was different. New flowers, new decor. The space had been rebooked, rebranded, reborn, like everything in this city. I stood at the edge of the railing, looked out at the skyline, and let the rain hit my face. It didn't feel like closure. It felt like clarity, like I'd survived the storm, and now, the sky finally made sense again. As I walked back to the elevator, I saw something scratched faintly into the side of the metal door. A name. Tayton. Tiny. Barely legible. Probably old. But it made me laugh. Because somehow, even now, that name was still trying to leave a mark. Still trying to matter. And I realized it didn't. Not anymore. Back in my apartment that night, I opened the old document again. The one where I'd written everything down. And I added the final line. Sometimes, the best revenge is just walking away clean. Then I saved the file, turned off the light, and sat there in the quiet. No echo, no lies, just peace. Subscribe to the channel